On today's episode of Locked On NHL, looks like Gretzky Watch is back on for Ovi and the Caps.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we're going to take a look at Alex Ovechkin returning to the Washington Capitals lineup, already making his mark and resuming his quest to pass Wayne Gretzky. We'll take a look at when he potentially could and why he might just get all of those goals against the Minnesota Wild in their upcoming matchup. We'll take a look at all that. We'll also talk about the Calder Trophy race later on in the show and the Dallas Stars. Naughty. We'll tell you what they did and how much it cost them later today as well. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And JD, the great one, is back. Well, the other great one, Alex Ovechkin, back in the Washington Capitals lineup, already making his mark, but most importantly, resuming his quest to pass Wayne Gretzky. And before we dive in, let's hear from Dan Holme of Locked On Caps to get just a little look at what Ovechkin coming back means for this really surprise Washington team so far this season.
Alex Ovechkin is back. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Ovi, who got injured on November 18th with that lower leg fracture, that left fibula sustained by a hit by Jack McBain, makes his return. All things considered, Ovechkin got off to a great start, 15 goals in 18 games, but the Capitals in their own right were successful in his absence, posting a 10-5-1 record in his absence. But all things considered, the Capitals play that much better with Ovi in the lineup. Alex Ovechkin plays very well against the Toronto Maple Leafs. This should be some exciting hockey to watch as the Great Eight makes his return. As we know, he is chasing down the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and also just helping the Capitals win some hockey games. There's a lot to love. I'll have much more on this for you later on Locked On Capitals, your team every day.
Thank you, Dan. And he talked about Ovechkin returning before the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And guess what? Ovi's 2 for 2. He's played in 2 games in the month of December. He's got 2 goals. So
yes,
not wasting any time whatsoever in getting back to form. I think before we get into like, when is he going to pass Gretzky? How long is it going to take? This is a nice big boost for a Washington team that is really, I think, surprising a lot of people this year. They are second in the NHL in points right now, but they have 3 games in hand on the New Jersey Devils, at least in the Eastern Conference. Winnipeg and Vegas have more right now, but 3 games in hand. It could easily be Washington at the top. They're scoring a ton of goals.
Yes.
It's a Capitals team that made some moves in the offseason to kind of get themselves back on track and to help Ovechkin in this quest. And so far, so very good for Washington.
I was dead wrong on this team. I thought this team was just kind of going to float along until Ovechkin got his record. Then they were going to finally kind of like tear things down and properly rebuild. But, I just thought they were just going to be one of those teams that maybe they flirt with a playoff spot. Maybe they most likely not, kind of like what we saw last year from them. But, this team, they're one of the best offenses in the NHL. They've scored 132 goals for this year. That is third best behind the Winnipeg Jets and Tampa Bay Lightning. And the defense, too. They've only allowed 95 goals, which is the third best behind the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets. If you're mentioned among the Winnipeg Jets, you're probably in pretty good company there. So, and they're doing this without Ovechkin for a good chunk of the season. So I'm really excited to see what happens when Ovechkin kind of even gets back into shape here. If this team could be one of those dark horse teams going into the Stanley Cup that we're talking about as an actual cup contender, not just a really nice story this year.
Yeah, it's funny because you assume with a lower leg injury that it's going to take a few games to kind of get back into rhythm. But
if we stand there, we'll get you the puck. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we look at the Alex Ovechkin experience over the last couple of years, it's more so just get to the faceoff circle and just wait for the puck. Like that's pretty much the MO, and it's pretty clear that his shot has shown no signs of rust so far this year. So he's still a few goals away, I think, based off this piece that I was reading. He needs 42 to tie. This was written yesterday. I think right around the time that they played. It said at the time he needed 42 to break Gretzky's record of 894 goals. So I'm assuming 41. Depending on when this was written. But he's got 46 games left, has 17 goals right now. How close do you think Ovechkin's going to get this year?
25. No, he's down to 25, buddy. 25 goals to get to Ovechkin. For Ovechkin to get Gretzky.
If I could read, Ovechkin entered the season needing 42 goals to break Gretzky's record. Yes. If I could read.
It's okay. I know they just got the alphabet up there in Minnesota, so it's okay.
How dare you?
How dare I? Canada gets it next week, so we're really excited for you guys. No, I think for Ovechkin, I think he does it this year, especially if the Caps team plays the way that they're playing right now. I think he does it this year, to be honest. I think he also wants to just get the weight, because you look at a lot of times when these all-time records, I think back as a Giants fan, when Barry Bonds was breaking the all-time home run record, and just I think the weight for these players, especially when you're a couple away from doing it, it starts to kind of weigh on these guys. And I don't think he wants to have to go into this whole summer with Ovi, you're 3 goals away from, having to hear that all off season, knowing that he's going to break it at some it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he breaks it. And I think with how good this Caps team is, how good this offense is, I think he gets it done this year, and I think it's going to be a huge relief. And then he could just go into the offseason like a normal offseason for him, and not have to kind of bear the weight of, okay, when is this thing going to happen for 3 months?
So based off of his current pace, so he's got 17 goals in 20 games. That's 0.85 goals per game. If you take that over the final 46 games, he would need 39. He would need right around 39 games to break it at that pace, which would put him at April 4th against Chicago. So the nice part is that that's April 4th. You still have 6 games on the schedule after that. So there's a little wiggle room. And that's assuming he just goes at a 0.85 per game. If you look at his numbers from the month of, I think, November was when he absolutely went nuts and had 10 goals in the month of November. If he goes on a run like that, well, then all of a sudden it becomes a little easier to move that up a little bit. But yeah, now that I can read, I think he definitely gets it this year. I think he'll do it with games to spare. And the best part is that, this is a Washington team that's in the full fight of a playoff race. And so this Washington team is not going to be going through the last 2 months of the season, and this is the only thing that they have to play for. They're going to be trying to position themselves for the postseason, probably going to be adding pieces at the deadline, depending on their needs, which, by the way, you can tune into Locked On Capitals for more on that every day of the week. But it's a team that has everything to play for. There's no need to shut anybody down. They're going to be in it all the way through to the end of the season, and so that means that they're going to be giving him plenty of opportunities to score.
The end of the season schedule is beautiful for Ovi.
Yeah, so I just looked at that too.
Starting March 30th versus Buffalo, and you have Boston, Carolina. It's a tough game, right? Good goaltending there. Then you have Chicago, the Islanders, Carolina. 2 games against Columbus, Islanders, Pittsburgh. There's some atrocious goaltending there. Ovi's going to be, Ovi's going to be set. I think he does it this year and just gets this thing done. I think he's going to be on a mission to get it done this year and just get this thing over with.
Get it done with, and then just create a nice little buffer next year. Go score 50, get up to 950 or wherever he'd be at.
Yeah.
That's a good plan. But yeah,
it'll be with 50 goals. It'd be amazing.
It's been a great start to the season for the Capitals, to say the least. And now with Ovechkin back, don't show any signs of slowing down. So for more on the Capitals throughout the week, again, make sure to check out Locked On Capitals. When we come back, we're going to talk about a player returning to some money leaving the pockets of the Dallas Stars. Wait until you hear what Pete DeBoer did to garner the attention of the NHL. That is on the way as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you you were paying for twice? Definitely happened to me. I've had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Guess who forgot to cancel all of his job search related subscriptions? Me. Not cheap, but thank you. Thankfully, Rocket Money was able to help get all of that in order. So that I didn't end up paying for those into the new year. So go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today to cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Seth Topal and JD Young hanging out here on a Tuesday edition of the show, and the pocketbooks are a little lighter for the Dallas Stars here this week, as it was announced that the National Hockey League has fined the Dallas Stars organization $100,000 for the team's practice on December 26th. This activity was in violation of Article 16.5B of the collective bargaining agreement between the NHL and the NHL Players Association. The fine goes to the NHL Foundation in an official release from NHL Public Relations. So what this stems from, the collective bargaining agreement has a buffer in it around Christmas. It is the 24th, 25th, 26th, and there are no activities to be done on those days. Not even travel. You can't do anything NHL related on those 3 days. I understand the logic. It's nice because the overall goal, I think, is we want players and teams to be spending times with their families over the Christmas holiday. But it creates a lot of headaches, especially travel-wise.
Yes.
Like the Minnesota Wild, for instance, they played the Dallas Stars on Friday. They had to fly out Friday morning.
Yep.
To get down to Dallas. I've seen this happen after Christmas when the Wild have had to go play Winnipeg for like a 5:00 p.m. game. Got to get up at the very, very, very early part of the day to get up there in time. And so, as noble of a notion as it is, it does create some travel nightmares for teams once the games resume after Christmas.
But Dallas wasn't traveling. They were at home.
That's true. Yeah.
Dallas wasn't traveling. The thing that I think that got them in trouble, listening to 32 Thoughts, was because they had a coach there and kind of running practice. And Pete DeBoer brought this up in a press conference, which is a little weird. And like the NHL sent out like a reminder, like before, like, hey guys, just as a reminder, like don't do anything. You're not supposed to have like the ice is not supposed to be available. You wonder if like it was a coach, like a captain skate, like you see in the, before the season starts, where like the captain will like kind of set these up, and it's a lot of the like skating with, players only, no coaches, etc. If they had done something like that, probably not in trouble. Maybe, probably not. Or like, whatever. But since they had the coach, and since Pete DeBoer was like, hey, bro, we had the coach here, not a good look. Not a good look for the Stars. I mean, like you said, we've seen the travel. I know Toronto got fined $100,000 a couple years ago when they flew out the day before. Even though all the players agreed to fly out the day before, it's still in the CBA. It's still against the rules. Like this is one of those where the players union is trying to protect the players from themselves. Like they've earned these days off. It's in their contract. Like you're trying to protect the players from themselves in here. And but yeah, it's. Like, and especially since you just got the reminder, that's Dallas.
Yeah. I have the quote that DeBoer said that got him in trouble and his response to it. If you want that, I think it's kind of funny. So DeBoer on the 27th said the following: I was at the rink yesterday. We had an optional. And of course, the young guys all show up for the optionals, which they're supposed to do, DeBoer said with a laugh. But as I started walking in, up front, you've got Bork and Back and Stankoven and Wyatt Johnston, still a young guy. And on the back end, you've got Bichelle and Lundqvist and Harley are still young guys. So, we've incorporated a lot of young players into this lineup over the last couple of years. Sounds harmless, right? Like, that quote by itself sounds completely harmless. But somebody, one of the reporters in there was like, Coach, did you say you had an optional? And DeBoer then said, optional, yeah, voluntary ice. And DeBoer then said he's aware that the NHL is looking into it. I'm assuming if the league is looking into it, I made a mistake somewhere there. Yeah, you did.
You did, buddy.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
This would be a great Curb Your Enthusiasm bit.
Yes.
Like a fantastic Curb Your Enthusiasm bit with Larry David just happening to be at the rink and like just being bewildered at seeing coaches on the ice and being like, wait a minute. What day is today?
Yeah.
Is it the 26th? Mm-hmm. And just like yelling at the ice, like, get off the ice.
I like how far like it's a coach. Could they be like the super like soccer parents, like not on the ice, but like at the glass, just like banging at the glass? Like, how close can they get? Is it like, can you be 50 feet? Can you be like, can you be in the stands like with a megaphone just yelling? Like, what's they got, or they're in the stands with like giant signs, just like try like with the drills. And then it's like, okay, we got to run this drill now. Yeah. I'm not saying anything, just in the stands with like signs. Like, I'm curious to see what the
Bobby Valentine when he got ejected from the New York Mets game and he came back in with.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Let's hear what Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars has to say about the situation, because obviously we find it funny. Dallas may not find it as funny. Let's take a listen.
This feels like par for the course right now with the way the season has begun to unfold. So we'll give you some of the details of this. And part of this was on head coach Pete DeBoer. So chalk this up as a loss for DeBoer, where he said that the quiet part out loud on a press conference he held on Friday, of course, ahead of the Minnesota Wild game last week. And he told reporters on Friday, I was at the rink yesterday. We had an optional, and of course, the young guys all show up for the optional like, they're supposed to do. Well, that comment and statement from Pete DeBoer sent the NHL into an investigation. So they launched a full investigation, and according to sources, the Stars fully cooperated with the investigation.
The funny part too is that the Stars lost that game to the Minnesota Wild without Kirill Kaprizov, so the optional didn't really help.
They needed more. It's the old rest versus rest debate, right? It's right there.
I guess this feels like something that John Tortorella would have done if I had
John
to.
Tortorella. John Tortorella's got 12:01 a.m. It's December 27th. You better be in the ice.
Get up! Get up!
He's just standing over Michkov's bed. Just at 12:01.
Oh boy. Well, speaking of Matvei Michkov, we've got a Calder debate to finish the show, because there is a nice little competition unfolding for the Rookie of the Year award. We'll take a look at the players that are making the most noise it's pretty much two guys, but we'll take a look at the leading contenders for the Calder as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Should mention, too, if you want to hear more about the Dallas Stars being fined and how they respond to it, make sure to check out Locked On Stars every single day of the week for all of the intel on the Dallas Stars you can possibly handle. Now, as far as rookies go, there are a couple of good ones. I have no skin in this game because the Minnesota Wilds, they don't have any current rookies that are tearing it up at the level that Matvei Michkov and somebody named Macklin Celebrini. Oh, I'm kidding. It's Celebrini. Those two are really pacing the Calder Trophy race right now. And it's led to some fun hockey, as I'm sure you can attest. And people in Philly are loving, well, maybe not John Tortorella, but people in Philly are loving what they're seeing from Matvei Michkov so far. So the question is, who's in the lead? And Russ and Rachel from Locked On Flyers, they got some thoughts.
Is this game a Flyers versus Sharks game, or is this game a Celebrini versus Michkov game?
No, it's a Flyers versus Sharks. If that other narrative is a small narrative, because then you're kind of doing a disservice to Lane Hudson and Dustin Wolf, who are definitely cemented in this race too. So that's the issue with that. If you want to compare the two, go ahead, but they play different positions. They play differently. Mm-hmm. They're on different teams. They have different responsibilities. Celebrini can do more of what he wants because he's already a two-way player, and Michkov can't. So Celebrini gets more ice time, even though he's played 8 less games. So, you really can't compare them.
It's true. And I think they are in different places in their development,
They are.
for sure. Celebrini, I think, having been in North America all this time, is sort of ahead of the game here in terms of, adjusting to the
Right. Which is
NHL.
not
And
surprising. Like, that was expected,
yep.
honestly.
Yeah, and when we started the season, I think both of us agreed that Celebrini was the likely Calder winner, but something
Yeah.
different could happen. But
Although I
that if
picked
Michkov,
Stankoven, who just really hasn't done well in weeks. So, he's fallen out of it. So but I knew that everybody would be in that race. I knew there'd be 3 or 4 in this race, and there could be 5 in the end, like 5 real legit.
yeah, yeah, and I was sort of thinking that if Michkov was in the 2 spot or the 3 spot in the votes, that's good for me.
Yeah, and
I
I
think
think
that would be
still
good
think he
for
will
him.
be. Yeah.
Yeah,
Me personally, again, really no skin in the game. I think it's a 2-horse race for this. I think it's Michkov and Celebrini. And, that's some great points that Russ and Rachel both brought up. They do play different positions.
They do.
Celebrini is being handed more responsibility right now than Michkov is because he is a little further along in his development. But people look at the points. The points are the telling part for me. And I guess the thing that I look at is that Macklin Celebrini at this point in the season is still a point per game player. Like he's which means he's making an impact on a nightly basis. And not to say that Michkov isn't, but I find it interesting too that Michkov has had a couple of instances where he has been benched. He's been sat down by Tortorella. So I don't know. If I had to make a selection, I guess I would go with Celebrini at this point. There are nice seasons being had. Lane Hutson's certainly having a good season. Logan Stankoven, as was pointed out, has just not gotten going yet. So I think it really comes down to Michkov and Celebrini. I mean, if you wanted to take a look at the goalie side of things, you certainly can. But it's one of those two for me, and I think at this point I'm really leaning towards Celebrini myself.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to it's even on FanDuel. FanDuel's got Macklin Celebrini right now as we're recording this at -175. Michkov is +210. Then Lane Hutson's +700, and then Dustin Wolf is +10,000. To show you just how much of it I think this is really a 2-horse race. And with Celebrini, as someone who gets to watch Macklin Celebrini night in, night out, I think he means more to his team what he is doing. And it's not like, I mean, the Sharks are the second worst team in the NHL right now when it comes to point percentage. Like, this is a bad team and they're going to be a bad team. But I think it's basically every game you get something from Celebrini where you're just like, oh, wow, oh my God, like type of player from him. And the defensive responsibility, even just the responsibility he's earning from the Sharks, late game situation. The Sharks have 6 forwards out there, offensive zone draw. Guess who's taking the draw? It's not Mikael Granlund. It's not Alex Wenberg. It's Macklin Celebrini taking the draw. Like, I'm not a big faceoff guy, but in those crucial situations, you're asking your 18-year-old player to win draws for you to try to get the game tying goals. And even just like what he means for the Sharks and their scoring since November 1st, he came back, I think around the 5th, if I recall correctly. Since November 1st, he leads the team in points during that time. He has 25 points. The next closest guy is Mikael Granlund at 21 points in 25 games. And then like William Eklund, Fabian Zerlin. Even if you look at the month of December where the Sharks offense has gone cold, he's still over a point per game. And Tyler Toffoli's next on the list at 8 points in 12 games. Like, what Celebrini's doing in all 3 zones. Like, I mean, going into the draft, I was so happy to get Celebrini. And, especially after all the Bedard hype, you're like, okay, like if we get a player who's like, I just night in, night out watching him, there's just stuff that he does that it blows my mind that he is able to do it. And I think we're talking about a potentially special, like one of the best players in the NHL in a couple of years for San Jose. And if he continues to stay healthy, I think he runs away with this Calder race, to be honest. It's tight now, but I think the way he continues to play and continues to get better, and even like, again, he's like anything he's asked to do, he's does it. And like, yeah, he's just going to keep earning more and more responsibility for the Sharks.
Yeah, it feels like a situation where it's similar to what the Wild had with Brock Faber last year. You've got a ton of stuff, and the Sharks certainly don't have the level of injuries this year that the Wild do, but they're still asking a young player to fill all these different spots. Hey, take the draws, play on the power play. I would assume he's doing some on the penalty kill too, but
they're really smart where they put him. He's the first guy out after the penalty kill, so
okay.
You're kind of getting that third line advantage of trying to like take advantage. So he's usually kind of that opportunity. But I mean, watching the Sharks right now, it's basically the Celebrini line creating offense and nothing else right now. It is very much they're asking this kid to do a lot, and so far he's kind of handling the load.
Yeah, well, and it's the big thing in knowing if a player is capable of it is he just doesn't seem like he's had any stumbling blocks, which means that the Sharks are just going to trust him with more and more as the season goes on, which means that his numbers are very likely to continue to elevate. And we saw it with Bedard last year, like his defensive numbers, like that was an abysmally bad. He was like minus, I think, 38 or something. Celebrini right now on a Sharks team that's, like you said, it's just it's not a great Sharks team, but it's a team that's trying to kind of continue to go on the up and up. And he's sitting right now at a very manageable -8 for a guy that's playing a ton.
On a team that struggles to score. And the Sharks goal differential is minus 37 right now.
Yikes.
Yeah. So like, and plus minus isn't like not my favorite stat, but still, I think though for Celebrini, and he's made the Sharks up like must-watch TV. Like, how many times is it like you see that clip of Celebrini doing something, like even on the Will Smith goal last week, where he is on his stomach, makes a poke check, gets up, crashes the net, and is able to get a pass over to Will Smith. Like, it's just stuff like that where you're just like, this kid is just something else, and he's 18. He's 18.
Must be nice. Must be nice. Well,
you got to lose a lot of games, Seth. You got to lose a lot of games.
They're just the Wild are just not in a spot to do that. So no. I don't even entertain. Yeah, I don't even entertain it because it's just not something that's based in reality. So we'll keep an eye on the Calder race, of course, as we do with all big NHL headlines throughout the week. But that is going to do it for today's episode. And, of course, for more on Matvei, Michkov, and Macklin Celebrini, make sure to check out Locked On Flyers and Locked On Sharks with episodes every single day of the week. You can also check out Locked On NHL for new episodes every Monday through Friday. So make sure to subscribe and make sure to like this video so you don't miss out. Put those notifications on so when new episodes get posted, you get that ding and you know, oh, new Locked On NHL. Babe, wake up. New Locked On NHL just dropped. It goes right to you. So appreciate everybody for tuning in here today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be back with you with a new episode tomorrow right here on Locked On NHL.